Hey guys, it's Book of Katherine, and no, I'm not doing so great, but it's UNGA week, and I have not been able to get a film that actually works on camera. I am going to try it again. Oh, Taz is so pissed because I will post your film, I promise. I just filmed something with him here, and then I had to trash it because I'm not doing well. But I'm like, I finally got warmed up, and I'm like, I'm speaking more clearly, so I'm trying to tape it again. You can come sit here. You can come sit here. Anyway. So I would like to talk to you about UNGA and what's going on there. So, all right. So President Trump posted a little hashtag UNGA clip, and I would like to explain to you what's actually going on in that clip. All right. So it's not what you think. I know you've caught some things, but it's not what you think. There is a number of things going on. There's a number of things going on that you need to know about. All right, get ready, because this is big. All right, numero uno. When Secretary of State Pompeo put out that announcement, which I posted, I was like so excited. Remember, I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually announcing for us. They're actually finally, someone in the Trump administration is like actually announcing for us and telling us ahead of time that something's happening. Like they're actually giving us a heads up. No one ever actually does this. Oh gosh, I'm stuttering. Maybe I'm not healthy enough to do this. But they're actually telling us ahead of time that this is happening. And I was like, they're telling us that Secretary Pompeo is going to be at UNGA Week. I was like, we actually know the UN General Assembly is coming up. Thank you for telling us the UN General Assembly is coming up next week. This is exciting. Yay, we know about it. I didn't know it was like climate change week or anything like that, but I was like, the UN General Assembly is coming. This is exciting. Is that who showed up? Is that who showed up to the UN General Assembly? Is Secretary Pompeo? Is that who showed up? But who did they plan for? Who did the UN plan for? Who did they set up all of their things for? You can tell it by the rooms and by the seating that they gave. So what he shows in that little 54-second clip or whatever, if you pay attention to it, is they give climate change this massive room, this massive amphitheater, just this huge UN, I don't know if that's the normal General Assembly room, but it's just massive. Like, it's just like, I was like, when did it get that big? Like, it's just got shiny walls. They've got huge, like, big screen things on each side or whatever, and they've got Angela Merkel in the front, and she's got no one sitting on either side of her. She's sitting alone. It's like climate change week, and they've got all 200 countries there, seats for all 200 countries, whatever, all 200 countries to be there and to attend climate change for the UN, Germany, Angela Merkel announcements, right? For her leadership with no one next to her. And where is President Trump seated? Where did they seat the USA because they were planning for Secretary Pompeo? Way in the back. They sat the USA all the way back. The number one economy in the world, the numero uno economy in the world, right? The number one economy in the world, the number one Bill of Rights nation, the number one only nation that allows the freedom to gather, the only nation that allows you to wear your makeup the way you want to wear it, allows you to wear your hair the way you want to wear it, allows you to wear the clothes you want to wear it, allows you to say the things you want to wear, allows you to do all the rights that you have. The only one that says you're created equal, that everyone's equal to each other, and that there are no differences between man. The only one that says that you can't discriminate based on race, based on gender, based on color, based on sexual orientation. The only nation that has any of those rights guaranteed of all 200 nations, they sit in the frickin' backstocks because they thought it would just be Secretary Pompeo. Do you know why they did that? Because they knew Secretary Pompeo had this itty-bitty feed and that it would go on his itty-bitty channel and that nobody watches that. They know like 2,000 people are subscribed to that. Who watches Secretary of Pompeo? Nobody watches Secretary of Pompeo. Nobody follows him. So who's going to care about what he's doing? And they announce, oh, that's who's coming. So, oh, sit him over there. And then Secretary Pompeo is supposed to be doing, what was the USA saying they wanted to do? They wanted to do a religious freedom event. That was what the America wanted to do. They wanted to do a religious freedom event. And what did they do for their religious freedom event? Climate change, to save the planet for climate change, which they can't even guarantee within a 0.00 degree with any kind of model that they've been trying to solve since 1972 without going after any single company. They keep going after countries, not companies, and yet they still have not gone after China, India, or Japan, the worst dumpers of plastic and garbage into the ocean at the tune of 400 million tons of garbage. Notice they only quote you plastic. They're not quoting you garbage. That's because the number's way worse for garbage. And why do they quote you plastic? And why do they say countries? Because then they can go after certain countries. But if they go after companies, like we did over in America, we went after Aaron Brockovich. Remember, we went after PG&E. If you go after the companies, well, then that just solves all the countries in the world. Those companies that have the worst practices, they're all globalist companies. They're in all the reaches. Well, if you just go after the companies, well, that kind of solves it. If you say, hey, companies, you need to have these practices, then it just solves it right there. But they don't do that. They don't go after companies at all. If they would set company practices, wouldn't that solve it all? But no, they keep going after countries. And amazingly enough, they don't do countries across the board. They keep targeting only very specific countries, and they don't apply them to any other countries. They only apply them to America and the UK, but amazingly enough, not India and not China and not Japan, interestingly enough. And so we get 8 million tons of plastic dumped into our oceans, and yet they tax us and tell us we have to clean it up, while it floats on over and kills goodness knows how much marine life. Isn't that interesting? Never mind the corn crops and what it's doing to our atmosphere, amazingly enough. And isn't it interesting that Germany can't seem to figure out a government? They don't even have a parliament. So how can you make their parliament pass any kind of climate change law if they don't have a government? And why would they need one when they've got the UNFCCC? They're governing the world. They're too busy governing the world to actually have a climate change government. Anyway, so my point is that what they did is America is doing a religious freedom conference. They think just Mike Pompeo's coming. So what do? They go ahead and give Mike Pompeo this itty bitty tiny room. So only like how many countries can attend it? Like what could that seat? Like maybe 50 countries attend it? That's it. They give them this little itty bitty side room, because they think it's just going to be Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. But who shows up? Who shows up? The biggest Twitter feed in the world. Almost, right? It's frickin' Donald J. Trump. President Trump shows up with Vice President Pence. And they've already done all the seating arrangements. They've already done all the room arrangements. It's too late. And Trump just pulls up and they're like, what? And he just sits right in front. Now, here's the other part of that you guys don't know. Or maybe you figured it out. But did you notice how President Trump is sitting in that seat and how Merkel's just like this? She looks like this big. Do you think that's just because she got caught? Do you think that's just because she got caught with the seating arrangement? Do you really think that's all it is? Oh, no, 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 honey. Oh, no, no, no. You watch that signing that President Trump is doing. Who's he doing a signing with? He's doing a signing with Pakistan. He's shaking hands with Pakistan. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are suddenly signing with President Trump? Maybe, just maybe that's because they've signed this new global terrorism compact that nails down on sustainable development. My goodness, that is the entire climate change compact. Notice nobody's sitting up there with Merkel. Why do you think nobody will stand on that stage with Merkel? He's got a bunch of people sitting on the stage with him for religious freedom, doesn't he? Bunch of people sitting on the stage with him next for religious freedom. But Merkel ain't got nobody standing on the stage with her. Nobody standing on the stage with her, honey. Empty stage. Maybe they're all arrested. Who knows? But what we do know is right before he goes out there, right before he goes to the UN, right before the UN Climate Change Week, what does he do? What does President Trump do? Booyah! He nails down on the National Development Fund of Iran, a $200 billion development fund in Iran, the last coin that Iran has. What does that mean? That means no one in America can receive payoffs, bribes, or funds for development from Iran. That's it. All their oil money, all their terrorism, all their sustainable development money, if that was a slush fund that Germany or China, if anybody was trying to slush fund and go through Iran and go through, and the only reason I say that is, number one, because it's called a development fund, but number two, the reason I say that is because of the way the press reacted. All they say in there when they do the announcement, it's very interesting. They don't do a signing in the Oval Office. They don't do anything like that. What they do is they say Secretary Mnuchin, while they have the Prime Minister of Australia in there, he's just like, Mnuchin, can you come over here? Let's go ahead and announce this. And he's like, oh, by the way, just so you know, press, we just added on some new sanctions to Iran, just so you all know it. And they're just like, eh? Because they already know, like, all the sanctions are down on the people of Iran. Like, all the sanctions are down on the people of Iran banking. And they know the only thing left is that development fund that this upper guy, which, by the way, if you look at the upper guy, he doesn't look like any of the Iranian people. Look at pictures of the Iranian army. Go ahead and look at pictures of the Iranian army to see what they actually look like, to see what the people of Iran actually look like. And then look at the picture of the actual guy that they supposedly elected. And go ahead and take off the hat or whatever and imagine him if he didn't dye his eyebrows. I mean, he's got a snowy white beard and his hands are like the color of my hands. You know what I mean? I'm like, he looks like my lit professor. I swear to goodness gracious, or my education professor. Straight out. Like, I was like, what is this, The Hobbit? Like, I seriously was like, who is this guy? Doesn't look like a single Iranian guy I know. Anyway. So I'm just saying it's very, very interesting to me that just with all the connections now with Germany, I'm looking at things differently. Now that I know that like the transnational companies with Germany and Britain and everything like that, and I'm seeing these families are all interconnected, now I'm starting to pay attention a lot more. And I'm like, why don't they ever share pictures with us? They share all the pictures of the world leaders. Don't they always share pictures of all the world leaders, of all the Western world leaders, but they never share the pictures with us of other world leaders. They show pictures of us of President Xi, but why don't they ever show us pictures of the Middle Eastern world leaders? They never ever show us pictures of those guys, ever. They never ever put those up in front of us. And I'm like, why not? Why are those always hidden? Why don't they even share their names with us? We barely ever hear them. They'll do that for Israel, but not for Middle East. They'll do it more for Saudi Arabia. What the heck? Anyway, so I was like, I wanted to pay attention to it until President Trump is like, all right, we're doing this. We're doing the rest of Iran. And everyone in the press room is like, eh? And I was like, okay, they're always doing sanctions on Iran. What's the big deal, right? Like, they're always doing sanctions on Iran. And Mnuchin just comes in and goes, okay, we're doing this bank. We're just going to do this bank and this bank. And you hear the woman start saying, what are you going to the top? And President Trump just goes, we're going to the top. We're going to the top. And you start hearing them going, the president? Are you doing the president? And he goes, to the top. We're going to the very top. And they're like, the leader? The leader? He's like, to the top, to the very top. And you finally hear some lady like just finally cack out, like, the supreme leader? And I was just like, how do these people who like usually have panned questions about everything and didn't know this was coming, these were actually like real, actual, like guttural reactions. How do they know anything about Iran? And how do they know anything about Iran's banking system? And not only that, but it had nothing to do with what they said. How do they know that these banks that they're talking about, the National and Development Bank, how do they know that the Development Bank of Iran has anything to do with the Supreme Leader? How do they know that? How do they know? And I was like, I didn't even know the guy was named the Supreme Leader, which I think is funny. And President Trump didn't seem to like them calling him the Supreme Leader. But I was like, oh, that I think it's hysterical. And I think it's hysterical that they have video games of who can be the supreme leader. I'm like, why are we all trying to be the supreme leader of Iran? It's this little country over there that's horrible to its people and like locks them up. If you riot and say that you want to be able to wear your hair out in the open, they lock you up for like 10 years. Oh yeah. And then they they lash Christians' backs open, like flay them, the house, like, oh yeah, that's what you want to be, supreme leader of torturers. Way to go. Just go ahead and hang gays up by their throats. Supreme leader. Be that. I think it's hilarious. When you have to call yourself supreme leader, that means that you've got an ego problem. That means you think your thing is a little small. Like, people who have to call themselves a supreme leader have an ego problem. They've got a real problem. That means they have, they have issues. They are compensating. That's the word. Anyway, so I think it's funny when someone says supreme leader, but this girl was really panicked about it. And so I was like, I got to go look this guy up. And then it was like $200 billion of wealth or whatever. So I just think it's very, very interesting. Now, the thing is, they think that's linked to terrorism. Well, isn't that interesting? He nailed down that last bit of development funds from Iran right before the climate change week, like literally the day before, so that when he walked in the house of this little UN climate change week, go ahead and look at his face. He's leaning forward to Merkel in that room like this. And he's just like, I got you. I mean, it's just hysterical. I mean, and every leader in that house, there's no power in there. That room is huge, but the energy there, I've seen pictures of it, and the energy in that room has always been like dominating. And if you pay attention to that 54-second clip, the power in that room ain't on Merkel. The power in that room is on this little dot on President Trump. You can maybe disagree with me. Why don't you go watch it and see what you think? Why don't you go watch it and see what you think and ask yourself where the power really is in that room? I mean, they may have, and isn't it interesting that the colors for the UN are blue and white? I find that interesting that the Democrat colors are blue and white and that the UN colors are blue and white. You know what I mean? So I find that very interesting. And anyway, and I found a lot of interesting things this night. I've been up all night from the pain. It's been really bad. This is me with makeup. That's how bad it is. This is me with a lot of makeup. It's been a really, really, really bad few days. I can't even walk. I've been trying to walk and I can't, even on a flat path, I can't do it. It's been really, really bad. So it has nothing to do with Freedom Week. It has everything to do with my SI joint. It's just been wearing off. You know that since last year. So anyway, go to UNGA Week. I've been encouraging you to go to UNGA Week. It is worth taking off your time, your job, and to educate the people that are there. This, of all weeks, is the thing to go. Use your flyers, flyer for each subject. But this is the time to meet people who are like you. Wear your roses if you want to find out. This is a great time to meet people on the ground. It's not safe to do it online. That's very dangerous. Online, to kind of group online on Facebook, not safe or anything like that. This is a great place to meet people who are like you. It's a great place to find out what's actually going on with sustainable development, what they're doing in your town with sustainable development, who the leaders are with this kind of thing. This is where they're chopping things up. They say it's climate change week. This is our climate change week. This is where Germany's trying to lead our country. And you can tell, President Trump is on it now. He's just I know where all the money trail is, but they're still going to try and do it. They still have all these side events going on. That doesn't mean the deals aren't being made. And this is the perfect time. All these kids that are there and all these teachers who are bringing in their school kids that are there, they're all there to save the planet. And they're all there to fight Nazis. And that's the thing, is that you can do that with the information we have there. Save the planet with Bayer crops. And tell them to go after companies. Say, let's fight the companies. Tell them, let's go ahead and look at if you want to fight climate change, here's all the information on China. Let's start actually getting down on China. Here's all the way that China's killing the planet. It's pulling off our polar jet stream. It's giving a quarter of the world's CO2. Look at how it's polluting the planet. Look at all this that China and India are dumping into our oceans. Let's go ahead and put things down on them? Why don't we start going after companies, not countries? You know, things like that. And each flyer for each separate thing. Or, hey, look at this. Can we start putting human rights into our trade agreements? Because these climate change companies have a history of human slave trade camps. They have a Nazi history of human slave trades. The concentration camps were actually slave camps. They were slave labor camps. And now we know that there are slave labor camps in China. And we're worried that these companies that are in China, we're worried that they're doing it. Can we please ask the UN to put trade agreements in, put human rights? They have all these human rights things. They say they're interested in human rights. So like have a flyer for each one of these, separate into groups and do a flyer for each one, divvy it up, pick one, and don't get all like I have to do it all. Your job is to just go. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest freedom fighter thing you can do is actually go. If you actually arrive there, and I am talking, I'm serious when I say this. I am talking people from Florida. I'm talking people from Kentucky, because freaking Kentucky, look at what you find out with your Bayer tobacco crops, Mr. McConnell and Rand Paul. And now we know why Rand Paul is voting against Iran sanctions. We know why that is now, because freaking Bayer and all that stuff with the tobacco crops down there, and why Mitch McConnell is voting against the border wall because Iran's the one doing all the drug deals and all the drug trafficking across our border. Now we know why Mitch McConnell, because all the tobacco cops are down in Kentucky. I know you guys don't want that. We know that there must be doing to your wages down there with those tobacco crops and not allowing you to earn your wages off of that. That's why your wages are so, and the poverty is so low down there. You must be just, oh my goodness, it's awful. Like, we want to lift you up, and this is a way to do it, is to be able to expose them and get the information and effort out there. So yes, from Kentucky, yes, from Georgia, yes, from Illinois, yes, from all over, from Maine and from Vermont and from New Hampshire and from Pennsylvania and from DC and from all over, Connecticut, New Jersey. Everyone should be flooding in and coming to New York and from all over, because this is the place to meet all the way through. And then you can spend the weekend trying a meeting and finding each other. And we can find a place. Let's see here. Let me try and find a place that we can find a meeting place. So the UN General Assembly, you should know that the UN General Assembly is actually not New York land. The UN General Assembly is not actual UN. We gave away our land. That was American land, and we gave it away to the UN. So they actually own that land now. That is their land. It's the UN's land. They own that land, which means they own land all around the world and every one of their sites around the world. And they have a lot of sites, right? So I'm wondering if that's just what they're doing, is they're doing a bunch of land grabs. And Turning Point, we now know, Turning Point is an actual tobacco company. And they said their goal is to just do land grabs. If you read the Turning Point Tobacco Company, they said their goal is to get clean cash and to do land acquisition. And I'm like, holy freaking cow. And I'm like, and it's profits over. I said free market capitalism, it's just, it's profit over life. And if tobacco market, it's literally, they say their actual Turning Point Tobacco's actual marketing strategy is to get tobacco to young kids. And cigars are worse than cigarettes. I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't even have filters. And here I'm watching Crowder yelling at Kellyanne Conway about vapes when he's like puffing a cigar. The audacity. You're not a conservative if you're behind the vape ban, but you're a conservative if you're puffing a cigar. Every conservative's puffing a cigar. Wow. Down to Prager, down to Michael Knowles, who turns out he has an acting reel. An acting reel. It is genius the way they are able to actually crush down on vaping that's better for you and pump cigars at the same time. It's just genius. Genius the way that they do that. And also, like, the profit over life model is just genius. Genius. And Turning Point Tobacco is this little known company that's become a hot commodity ever since Turning Point USA. It's skyrocketed ever since Turning Point USA. And guess who sells their biggest product, is amazing, is their actual creative director. And he has right on his Twitter feed, right on his Twitter thing, it actually says tobacco. It actually says, what is it, chewing tobacco or whatever. And what is that chewing tobacco name on Turning Point Tobacco? It's Red Hat Tobacco. It's actually red hat tobacco. I'm like, way to profit off the name of Trump. I've never seen a bigger way to profit off the name of Trump. It doesn't say Trump hat tobacco, it says red hat tobacco. And they even use the name of Virginia. The poor Virginias. It doesn't say it's grown in Virginia. It doesn't say it's made in the USA. I would love to know where that stuff is grown. Oh my gosh, I would love to know. But of course, it's profit over life, right? Free market trade, free market capitalism, can't have any human rights restrictions on that trade. Right, Charlie Kirk? Right, Candace Owens? Free market capitalism. Free market capitalism. I would think, Candace Owens, that you would know, of all people, that you would know what free market capitalism brought the South. I would think that you knew what free market capitalism brought America. I would think that you knew that the entire Civil War was over free market capitalism. The abolitionists were against it. They were like, there are limits to trade. But I guess some people are more willing to take the money, right? It's just easier to be fed a line. So hard to do your own YouTube channel, isn't it? So hard. Easier to just get a stamp on the side and travel around the world. Sad. Anyway, we're just human. What did that thing say in the NASB that I found? No one's good. No one is good. No one's good. I'm not good. No one's good. You can't expect anyone to be a saint. No one's good. Everyone's fallible. Everyone's fallible. Everyone's fallible. No one's good. No one's perfect. I just have a really big problem with the slave trade. I just really draw the line. I really draw the line at human rights in trade agreements. I really, really do. I really think that there should be fair trade and human rights in our trade agreements. And I think we should do flyers about that. I think that we should be outlawing. I think we should have human rights restrictions in our trade agreements. I don't think that that is too much to ask, since we fought a bloody battle over it in the Civil War. And then Mitch McConnell and Senator Feinstein and Pat Roberts undid it all. Undid it all on March 23rd, 2001. Undid it all. They undid the Civil War in one blow. I just have a problem with that. And I think a few flyers would help. And the UN kids that are going out there, they are there to fight for that. And you can help them. And I think that I'm too sick to be doing this film anymore. I should go rest. I love you so much. And have fun, you guys. Have fun for me. And if you want to share my feed, you are more than welcome to share my feed. That's right. I was going to find a place for you to meet. The nearest Starbucks. Literally find the UN General Assembly and look up the nearest Starbucks. Literally the nearest Starbucks. And that's where you meet. You wear your rose and you gather. And you just kind of hang around there. You get your coffee there, whatever. Go ahead and buy coffee that day. By all means, this is your week. This is your week to go whole hog on Starbucks. Go for it. That's it. You're undercover this week. Remember, no Trump hats, no nothing. You guys are climate change activists, and you guys are climate change activists, human rights activists, because we are. We know that corn crops are killing the planet, and you are. You hate Nazis. You don't have to pretend anything. You're just not big pro-Trumpers, right? You know, if you're big pro-Trumpers. Go out there and fight for everything that everybody in this world believes in, right? You'll know the people who are actually in it for the business, right? Just avoid them. But go to Starbucks, right? And that the closest Starbucks, just look up the UN General Assembly, get to the front gate, and then go Starbucks and get to the closest one, and that is where we will all meet. That is where you can go ahead and mill around and kind of look around and just kind of be like, wear a rose pin or wear a rose symbol or whatever. And that's how you'll know, okay? That will be your meeting place. That will be your meeting sign, and that's how you can find people, or have flyers in your hand or whatever. That can be your thing. Or have like a, we can roll. That's what it can be. Roll a keychain. Just roll a keychain on your feet. That'll be a nice clear sign. Just stand on a corner at the Starbucks or whatever, be in the Starbucks and roll your keychain. That'll be a nice clear, ain't nobody rolling their keychain, but nobody's going to guess anything about it. So just sit there and roll a keychain. I don't care if you have to buy a New York keychain if you have to or whatever, but just sit there and drink your coffee or whatever and roll your keychain. And you can stop for a little while and then roll your keychain again or whatever. And just every 10, 15 minutes or whatever, roll your keychain and stuff like that, and just sit and two people see it. Then you can go up and talk or whatever, and then you can go outside and talk or whatever, and then come back in and then roll your keychain or whatever and gather another person. You know what I mean? Like, just every once in a while go in, and then you meet up people, and then it just, you can, if you even meet one person, success. If you even meet one person, and I would say definitely like the end of the week, stay that weekend, like after the 30th or whatever, that end weekend, that's a great time to meet. Like, definitely meet and talk about, definitely meet in that Starbucks and find out, like, meet at the lunchtime, like that Saturday or whatever. I would say at noon on that Saturday, the Saturday after it, just noon, I would say meet there, and everybody meet there and find out what the heck you all learned. Noontime that Saturday, at the end of that whole week, at the end of this week, this coming Saturday, noon, be there. Whoever can be there. Whoever can be there, make that this meeting spot. You know what I mean? Or in fact, just make it noon every time this week. Make noon the meeting spot. Twirl the keychain. We can do a noon PM, and then we can do how should we do it? Noon, 3, and 7. How's that? Noon, 3, and 7 p.m. Does that make that easier? I mean, you can do it any time of the day you want, but just do a noon, 3, and 7 p.m. thing, like every day this week. Does that help? So that you can still do your activities or whatever, but just try noon, 3, and 7 p.m. and see if somebody's there around those times, and give yourself a 10-minute lead and 10-minute over, instead 20 minutes, noon, 3, and 7, and just see if anybody's there at the closest Starbucks. And maybe there'll be more than one Starbucks, but at least you'll find out. You know what I mean? Like, at least you find out, and at least you'll meet people there. So there you go. That's the best I can do for you. And that's the best undercover media I can give you. When you meet, do not forget to exchange phone numbers, get each other's texts, get each other's things, get each other's addresses so you can get on a mailing list, and we'll start building this chain up and everything like that. And then they won't know how you met or whatever it is and stuff like that. And that will be the best thing, because you'll have a friend to meet, and you can go travel, and you'll have someone to actually go do road trips with maybe in the future. Or maybe you won't like each other at all, and you'll just end up meeting and you'll never text each other again. Who knows? You know what I mean? You never, ever, ever, ever know, right? You never know. But the point is just to start meeting each other and just start somewhere. All right. I love you. And that was the last thing. Today I learned that Ronald Reagan designated the rose as the national floral emblem of America. He said that he said that it is the universal symbol of how we demonstrate how we love one another and care about one another. He said it like nothing more exemplifies us than the rose. I found out, so he actually made a declaration and wrote it out. So there's actually a presidential declaration. So it's actually the national emblem of the United States of America for freedom, the rose. And I never knew that. I thought it was a symbol of grace awakening. It wasn't. It was America. I did a tape a long time ago. I never posted it. I was trying to say, like, what is it that I believe? Because everybody did all these things on what they believe. And I was like, what do I believe? What do I believe? I was trying to talk through it on the tape, like, what do I believe? And I ended up just being the Constitution. And today I was like, wow, I guess that's true. I love you. Have fun this week.